It was a Monday morning like any other at Pinnacle Enterprises, one of the most successful private firms in all of Chicago. The offices were sleek and modern with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the city skyline and a kind of quiet hum of productivity that comes from people who take their work seriously. For 26-year-old Grace Ellison, it was only her second week on the job and she was still learning where everything was kept and which coffee machine worked properly and which elevator took the longest. She was sharp and hardworking and genuinely excited about the opportunity, and she had shown up both mornings so far 15 minutes early with a smile that her colleagues had already started to notice and appreciate. She was organizing files at her desk late that first Monday when she heard footsteps stop beside her and looked up to find her boss standing there. His name was Mr. Victor Hale, and he was the kind of man who commanded attention simply by walking into a room. Tall, well-dressed, confident in the particular way that comes from having never been told no very often. He looked at her for a moment and then told her plainly that she was very beautiful and that they should meet up after work sometime. Grace felt the air in the room shift slightly, but she kept her composure completely. She looked up at him with a polite and genuine smile and thanked him for the compliment and told him calmly that she had a boyfriend. Victor held her gaze for a moment and then nodded slowly and walked away without another word. Grace turned back to her files and said nothing to anyone. The next morning Grace arrived at her desk to find a bouquet of her favorite flowers sitting in the center of it alongside a small box of the exact chocolates she loved most. She had not told anyone at this office what her favorite flowers were or what kind of chocolate she preferred, and the fact that someone new made her feel a quiet and unsettling chill even as she acknowledged that the gesture itself was beautiful. Victor appeared in the doorway of his office and leaned against the frame with his hands in his pockets and the relaxed ease of a man who was used to getting what he pursued. He told her that he had done a little research and that he knew her boyfriend did not have much money and that a woman like her deserved so much better than that. He told her he had everything in life and that whatever she wanted she only had to ask and he would provide it without a second thought. Grace looked at the flowers and then looked back at him with the same steady calm she had shown the day before. She told him that yes, she knew her boyfriend did not have a great deal of money right now, that they were in the same position, but that she loved him and that they were going to build something together. She was not interested in what someone else could buy for her. Victor's easy smile faltered slightly, but he straightened up and walked back into his office, and the morning continued as if nothing had happened. On the third morning Grace came in to find a small velvet box sitting on her keyboard. She recognized it immediately because she had seen one exactly like it before in the window of a jewelry boutique she sometimes passed on her lunch break. Inside was a necklace she had admired through that window on more than one occasion, elegant and delicate and genuinely beautiful, the kind of thing she never would have bought for herself. She closed the box gently and set it to the side of her desk and sat down and started her morning the same way she always did. When Victor appeared she looked up at him and asked him a question that had been sitting in her mind since the flowers and chocolates the morning before. She told him she was curious and asked how he knew so much about her in such a short amount of time. The easy confidence on Victor's face shifted into something harder and colder. He told her not to test his patience. Grace kept her voice level and asked what he meant by that. He told her he was the one who signed her paycheck and that she would be wise to remember that. The words hung in the air between them like something that could not be taken back. Grace stood up slowly from her desk. She was not shaking and she was not rushing, and there was nothing frantic in her movements at all. She simply stood up to her full height and looked at him with clear and unbothered eyes. Victor seemed momentarily caught off guard by the absence of fear in her face and then recovered himself and smiled the smile of someone who believes they are holding all the cards. He asked her directly whether she wanted to go out with him now or whether he was going to have to make more threats before she made the sensible choice. Grace said nothing in response. She did not argue and she did not plead and she did not try to negotiate. She simply picked up her bag from beside her chair and smiled at him, not a nervous smile or an apologetic one but a calm and certain one, and she began walking toward the door. She was halfway across the office floor when she heard a voice behind her that stopped her completely. Not Victor's voice. A different one. A familiar one. The voice said "my love," and Grace turned around slowly with confusion written all over her face because she could not understand what she was hearing or how it was possible. Standing behind Victor, having apparently come through the private office entrance, was her boyfriend. His name was Daniel, and he was looking at her with an expression that was equal parts relief and emotion and something that looked very much like pride. Grace looked between the two men, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Victor's hard expression had completely dissolved, and he was watching his brother with something unreadable on his face. Daniel walked past his brother and crossed the office floor toward Grace and took both of her hands in his and looked at her for a moment before he spoke. He told her that Victor was his brother. That they had planned this together. That the reason he had never told her about his family or his background or the fact that his brother ran one of the most successful firms in Chicago was because he needed to know something before anything else. He told her that he came from money, that he was not poor the way she believed him to be, that the modest and simple life he had been living while they were together had been a choice he made deliberately. He wanted to know who she was when she believed there was nothing to gain from loving him. He wanted to know whether her loyalty was real or whether it was contingent on what he could provide. His voice was quiet and his eyes were completely serious and completely gentle at the same time. Grace stood very still while he spoke. She was processing everything, and it was a great deal to process all at once. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment, and then she let out a short breath and asked him what exactly he was saying to her. Daniel smiled, and it was the same smile she had fallen in love with, unhurried and warm and completely his own. He told her to ask him something. She looked at him and said, "Ask you what?" He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and his hand came out holding a small ring box, a different one from the velvet box that had been sitting on her desk, smaller and simpler and clearly chosen with far more care than anything designed to impress. He got down on one knee right there in the middle of his brother's office with the Chicago skyline spread out behind him through the floor-to-ceiling windows, and he looked up at her and asked if she would marry him. Grace looked at him kneeling there and felt everything she needed to feel to answer that question settle clearly and quietly inside her chest. She thought about the flowers on her desk and the expensive necklace and the threats that had been made and how none of it had moved her even slightly because none of it had come from the person she actually loved. She thought about how easy it would have been at any point over those 3 days to make a different choice and how it had never once felt like a difficult decision because love that is real does not feel like a sacrifice. It simply feels like the obvious thing. She told him yes. She told him without hesitation and without drama and with the same calm certainty she had shown every single morning that week. Victor stood in the doorway of his office watching his brother slip the ring onto Grace's finger, and the hard businesslike expression he wore so naturally softened into something much more human. He had agreed to play his role in this because Daniel had asked him to and because he trusted his brother's instincts. But standing there watching it play out, he understood something he had not quite expected to understand. That what his brother had found in this woman was something that could not be bought or negotiated or acquired through any means available to someone like Victor Hale, regardless of how much he had in his accounts. It was simply there or it was not. And in Grace it was completely and undeniably there. Loyalty is one of the rarest things in this world. Not the loyalty that exists when everything is comfortable and easy and there is nothing to gain from leaving. But the loyalty that holds steady when someone is offering you everything you have ever wanted and the only price is the person you love. That kind of loyalty cannot be faked and cannot be bought and cannot be manufactured under pressure. It either lives in a person or it does not. If you are lucky enough to find someone who carries that kind of love for you, then you have found something worth more than anything money can provide. Guard it. Honor it. And never take it for granted. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone you love today. *.